Hello there, welcome to Speaking of Business. I'm your host, Nancy Boyle. Today we're going to talk about nonprofit organizations. So joining me are Jessica Fowler with Hands On Jacksonville, Dr. Georgette Dumont with University of North Florida, and Kevin Monahan with the Small Business Development Center at UNF. So welcome.
Glad to be here.
I'm going to start with ladies first.
Good idea.
Jessica, tell us a little bit about what you do at Hands On Jacksonville.
Well, at Hands On Jacksonville, our mission is to inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take action that changes the world. Our vision is that one day every person will discover their power to make a difference, creating better communities in a better world. And it all sounds nice and warm and fuzzy, but when it gets down to it, what we really do is engage volunteers with over 100 nonprofits. Last year we managed over almost 1,400 volunteer opportunities, engaging over 7,000 volunteers and more than 25,000 hours of work. We also do a lot of training for board leadership, for youth leadership. Pretty much if it comes along with volunteering, volunteerism, training for volunteers, it's along the lines of what we do.
Excellent. Jet, tell us about what you do.
I am a professor at the University of North Florida. I teach in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration, and I specifically teach in their Masters of Public Administration program, and part of that program has a nonprofit certificate, a nonprofit concentration. Alongside of that, people can also enroll in the Graduate Nonprofit Certificate Program. It's a program that has 4 courses: nonprofit management, nonprofit financial management, stakeholder relations, and then an approved elective. And it can be completed within 1 year. And that just gets people ready to enter, or even if they're working in the nonprofit world, it gives them a framework to put all their experiences in. So it just gets them better prepared to face the challenges that are facing nonprofits now and in the future.
Well, good. And I want to get back to that. But Kevin, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm Special Projects Director at the Small Business Development Center. And we work with small businesses. We work with established businesses. We work with people who are dreaming of starting a business, but we also do a lot of nonprofit work as well. We do a lot of one-on-one work, and we do a lot of curriculum workshops for nonprofits as well.
Okay, and I want to get into the whole, running a nonprofit like a business kind of a thing. But I want to go back to you, Jet. And can you tell our audience a little bit more about this certificate program? This is sort of new. It's only been the last couple of years, right?
It's grown within the last couple of years. It's been here for a while, but it's really blossomed in the last couple of years. A couple of us were hired in the department to really focus on nonprofit organizations and get this ramped up again.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, it's a 4-course program. It takes a year to complete. We have students at all different levels. You have some who are just out of the undergraduate before going into a master's program, but they're not sure if they want to go into a full master's degree yet. They'll take the certificate program just to kind of get used to going that graduate level work. Others have been working in the nonprofit sector for years, and they're just looking for a way to refine what they know and be able to see the big picture and how what they do in their organization fits in their organization's larger umbrella, as well as the community and Northeast Florida and the sector as a whole. So it's a vibrant program. This year we'll be announcing the first recipient of the Nina Waters Nonprofit Leadership Scholarship.
Oh, great.
Joan and Jim Van Vleck gave us a $25,000 gift to the Nonprofit Graduate Certificate Program, allowing us to have a scholarship for $1,000 a year for one student who works in the nonprofit sector already, and preferably at small nonprofits, to help them become more professionalized in this ever increasingly professionalized
Well, it's
sector.
a booming market.
Yes.
Now, do you need to have an undergraduate degree in order to take the certificate program?
Yes, it's a graduate level certificate, so
Okay.
once you have a bachelor's degree, you can get into that certificate program.
Okay, well, why don't you give out your phone number real quick in case anybody out there is interested in participating in the program.
Sure, you can contact me at UNF, and my number is 904-620-5855, or you can contact Dr. George Candler. He's the MPA program director, and he's the one who does all the paperwork and everything for the admissions into the program. His number is 904-620-3855.
I wanted to make sure we got that out because, as Kevin's probably going to talk about a little bit here now, the whole nonprofit industry is growing, and I'm sure, Jessica, you've seen that with your volunteers and the numbers that you were throwing out there about all the
Absolutely.
volunteers and all the organizations. So, want to make sure people out there know about that program.
Well, it's a great course, and there had been a lot of executive directors and some board members and people with strong nonprofit backgrounds who have taken that graduate certificate because, once you're out there for years, it's the opposite of what you think. When you're in school, you're saying, well, I'm getting too much theory and not enough practice. And out there, I'm getting too much practice and not enough theory. And so it's a great series of courses.
Okay, well, let's get into the whole nonprofit thing. What's the difference between a nonprofit and a profit?
Chet, give me the academic version.
Well, nonprofit, first off, is a misnomer. Nonprofits have to make a profit to be sustainable for the long term. It doesn't mean that they're going to make a profit every year. Some years they'll fall short. But long-term goals, when you're planning your organization, the programs, the funding streams coming in, you really should be striving to make some kind of a profit year after year to be able to have some kind of a base to fall back on. When things like 2008, 2009 happen, you have something that will help you get through the rough times. So that's the first part, is nonprofits, it's a misnomer. They do make a profit. What they do with the profit is different.
Okay.
In the for-profit industry, that profit goes back to the owner or to the shareholders. In the nonprofit industry, all the profits go back into the organization. So it doesn't go out to the shareholders. And so that's the main part, is that money funnels back in to help individuals.
And it doesn't go out to the shareholders because there are no shareholders. The community, in theory, is the owner of the nonprofit, and the board act as the stakeholders of that mission on behalf of the community.
Okay, well, that's a good segue to ask about board development. Obviously, a board of directors is going to be a critical component of any nonprofit organization. It's a requirement. Am I correct?
Yeah, you have to have a minimum of 3 in order to start a nonprofit, but you better not stop there because they come and go. And really, let's call it the care and feeding of a board. I think there was a quote. I think his name was Houle, who said that a great board is a victory, not it's a great gift, and it's very difficult to maintain a really active, good, talented board that's willing to bring the gifts that they have to bear on the mission. There's a lot of people who have great jobs or great careers out in the private sector, but sometimes the board members forget to bring that talent to the table when they're having the meetings and doing the day-to-day business of accomplishing the mission. And so the executive director has a great responsibility in trying to pull the best out of these boards.
So when let's talk about, because we'll start at the top and work our way down. We're going to get to the volunteers. You've got an executive director who reports to a board of directors. So if somebody out there in the audience is struggling with some of these issues, what are you suggesting? What kind of person do we look for in the executive director? Because typically, and I may be wrong on this, but typically it's the person who has the passion about a thing that says, I want to do something for the community because I have an experience with, I don't know, maybe it's an illness, maybe it's a program or whatever.
Let's talk about that. Deferring back to Jessica, really, a board member is a super volunteer.
Okay.
So you have 2 levels of volunteerism in that. You have at the highest level, the volunteer, I call it a super volunteer, is the board member themselves. And you need to match the board member's talents to the mission that you're trying to accomplish. Just taking a warm body it's a big mistake. But unfortunately, when a new nonprofit starts and they don't have a lot of street credibility, so to speak, they tend to take whoever is interested, and it sometimes comes back to haunt them.
And when you're looking at a board, you also want a diverse makeup on your board. You want to make sure that you have different skill sets.
Okay.
And as the executive director, you have a say in suggesting who may come onto the board that gets voted on by the board of directors. And so the executive director's role would be to see where the gap is in the board and fill that role. The purpose of the board is really to set the policy and the direction of the organization, and the executive director is to implement those policies that are set by the board. And so you need to have a good symbiotic relationship between the executive director and the board, which is important. So then you have personalities that come into play, but all of them, executive director and board members, should all be passionate about what that organization does. I had a conversation once with somebody I used to work with. She was on the board of a hospital out in the Midwest, and I noted, well, are your board members noted on your website? And she's like, no, we don't want that information out there because we don't want them to be poached. I'm like, well, your board members shouldn't be poachable.
Exactly.
Your board members should be passionate about your organization and as passionate as the executive director to make sure that that organization is really fulfilling its role in helping to build a better community.
Yes, if you're worried about them leaving, you have a problem.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that would make sense. Jessica, I do want to flip over to you and talk a little bit about some of the leadership development things, because leadership development is going to be critical for a board, correct?
Yeah, well, we have a program called Blueprint for Leadership. It's a 6-month program. It's 1 full day a month where we take community leaders and we basically teach them that you don't just sit on a board, you serve on a board. And part of that is learning the skills that you need to serve on a board, as well as building that network among other professionals and understanding the roles and responsibilities, because it's not just a matter of let's go to a meeting. You have to fundraise if you're going to be on a board. You have fiduciary responsibilities. There's a lot that goes into being on that board. In Blueprint, 5 days are building that team among the cohort, learning the skills, the accounting responsibilities, the legal ramifications, having a solid board so you're serving as a team, working with people and not just around the idea of the nonprofit. The 6th and final day is actually a project day. So the group and the cohort from that given year picks a nonprofit in the area, and they'll take their time, they raise money, and they do a project. And a lot of the times it's a transformation or a makeover. I actually went through Blueprint for Leadership, and we did Belmont Head Start Center. So we spend this whole 6-month period learning how to serve on a board, and then to really bring it home and make it real, we go into a nonprofit and see, so from the bottom up, this is where the volunteers come in, this is the organization, get to know it really well, and benefit it, and that way you're seeing the impact you're having, because on a board, sometimes you're just sitting in those board meetings, you don't get to see what you do, so giving that full circle approach of seeing the impact you can potentially have in that role. You might not be the one shoveling dirt every day, but you're making it possible for people to shovel dirt every day.
The impact for Blueprint for Leadership, which I've been through as well, is dynamic in that the project itself is wonderful and what they accomplish is wonderful, but the cohort, they still call cohorts? The cohort, when they graduated, these are young leaders in the community, and they are now ravenously eager to serve on a board, and they're matched to boards based on their interests.
Now, how many times a year do you run the program?
It's once a year. We're actually accepting applications for next year. It begins in January. This year we did the second Wednesday of every month for that 1-day learning session. But it's kind of like a college class. It's not as simple as you show up that one day. There's a lot of work that goes on outside of the classroom. So we are accepting applications. We encourage people to apply, but have a realistic expectation that it's like taking on a college course for
6-month program.
Exactly. And that it ends with a certificate and a graduation ceremony, but it is once a year. We do have other programs throughout the year, like Volunteer Management Training Series, which is in October. So there's other programs, but specifically speaking to the board, that's the first half of the year.
So if somebody is interested, who do they call?
Well, they can call our office. Our number is 904-332-6767, and for that they're going to want to speak with Carol Ann. They can also get more information on our website. It's handsonjacksonville.org/blueprint.
Okay, but wonderful programs. I mean, here we've got a graduate certificate, we've got a 6-month program here to develop folks in the community to really have an impact.
The reality is we're really
wonderful.
fortunate in Jacksonville. Just like in the for-profit sector, we have probably more agencies that work with small businesses than many other cities in the United States. We're frequently ranked in the top 10. And I don't think they've ever ranked Jacksonville in terms of assets that are available to nonprofits. But between these guys and what we're doing at the SBDC and the Nonprofit Center of Northeast Florida, it's a pretty robust environment for nonprofits.
And Jacksonville is actually 5th nationally for volunteerism, the rate in which citizens volunteer. So across the country, we do have a very high rate of people getting engaged in the community.
It's funny that you say that, because all you have to see is some disaster in the news or some really tug at your heartstring story, and people in this community donate money, they volunteer time. I mean, it really is kind of a nice city to live in because of that, So Kevin, I want to come back to you because you were talking about what the SBDC is doing for the or the nonprofit organizations. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about some of the workshops and the conference coming up.
Okay, well, I have a view of working with the nonprofit sector as legs on a chair. And I feel one of the things that we do is we do the one-on-one consulting because our certified business analysts that have nonprofit backgrounds are available to meet with executive directors or board members or whoever it is for at least an hour at a time or even assist in a project. And so that's very valuable because that is no cost. So that's very helpful to the nonprofit as well. We also think that we're in the right place to do some capacity building. We work with existing nonprofits in areas like grant writing and fundraising and strategic planning, and you know, some other ones depending on what they need. And so we run, I would say probably 9 workshops a year, and then we have the conference, and this will be our 3rd conference. And these folks are sponsors with us, as is the Nonprofit Center of Northeast Florida. The one this year will be September 20th. It'll go from 8 till 1:30 in the afternoon. We have Sherry McGill, who's president of the DuPont Foundation, who will be our guest speaker, which will be very interesting because they recently purchased the main library downtown and is going to turn that into a what we could call a nonprofit incubator, so to speak, and that's going to be interesting to see what she has to say about that. And then we have a number of breakout sessions. They're not full-blown workshops, but I would say they're 40 minutes of fun in different categories.
I remember taking your social media one. That was very good.
She was great with that. Fundraising, advocacy, fundraising through cell phones, you know, and getting your nonprofit noticed. The whole world is doing everything off of a smartphone now, you know, so we've got that incorporated. And we also have a panel discussion, which will be staffed by heads of foundations. Will give us a better insight into how they think and how they fund nonprofits.
So the people that should be attending this are anybody that's within the nonprofit community?
No question about it.
Okay.
And also people who want to access them.
Okay. Jet, I want to ask you, because you've been involved with this, I think, since the beginning, correct?
Yes.
So why don't you kind of share with our audience your experiences as a sponsor, as a participant, workshop presenter, kind of what you've seen as a result of this?
One, it's a great networking opportunity to get out there and meet other people who are interested in the nonprofit sector and those who are in the nonprofit sector. The first year we did it, this is our 3rd year. I had just moved here, so I was still learning my way through who these people are in the nonprofit sector and all that. And over time, you get to network with them a lot more. You can see just the passion and their desire to learn more about what they do and how to do it better. So the networking opportunities are great. There's sponsor tables there to help nonprofits with varying
Banks,
suppliers, vendors. So different aspects that the nonprofits may need there. The workshops, all the little breakout sessions, I do one on social media and technology. The first year I was there was how you can use it. What I'll be doing this year is I'm going to be reporting the early results from a survey that I put out to the nonprofit organizations in Northeast Florida on how they utilize technology and the benefits that they believe that they get from all these different online technologies. And
it's mind-boggling.
It's going to be very preliminary. The survey, I'll probably launch the survey within the next couple of weeks. So if they get a little message in their inbox from somebody over at UNF, that's my survey, please take it. And what I'm really trying to do is measure how much organizations are using social media in Northeast Florida and what they're getting from this, just to get a better feel for how it's being utilized and how it's being perceived as being helpful, which would then fall back over into the fundraising with smartphones and things like that.
Right.
I just find that fascinating, fundraising with smartphones. You know?
Well, your credibility now is inside a square that big. If somebody wants to check out who you are, if I can't access you on this, you don't exist.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Anyway, so the date again?
It's the 20th of September.
20th
coming
September.
up, 8:30.
Okay.
And you can contact our front desk to register for this. And no matter who you are out there, you're going to get an email from us regardless. And the number is 620-2476.
Okay.
Or our website, which is sbdc.unf.edu.
Okay. And so Jet mentioned the technology, social media one, fundraising over your smartphone, and what are some of the other ones again?
Well, we've got advocacy. We have fundraising, which is a constant, perennial favorite. The lunch will be a networking thing. We're getting everybody lunches, and they're just going to talk at a round table. We may have some facilitators at the tables to encourage that conversation, exchange of ideas, and then the foundation breakout, which will be very good.
I think that's going to be really important because I think, especially newer nonprofit organizations, they really don't know how to kind of maneuver through that whole getting to a foundation and trying to get them to fund you and things of that
Yeah, I
nature.
agree. That's right.
So I think that's really important. Jessica, I want to come back to you because I want to make sure we get the whole volunteer thing in because volunteers are so crucial to an organization. Let's say there's a nonprofit organization that's listening or somebody from a nonprofit organization and they realize they either need more volunteers, need to better utilize their volunteers. So talk to us a little bit about what your organization does with the whole volunteer training and that kind of thing.
Well, we have a lot of different programs on a lot of different levels. The first thing I would say is become a member with Hands On Jacksonville. Every member agency gets to post on our online calendar. So it's as simple as once someone has an account with us, they can go on our calendar and one-click sign up to volunteer anywhere. Right now we have over 100 nonprofit member agencies. I want to say 132. But that might be off because it fluctuates every day. They're all here in Jacksonville, some are a little farther south. But what that does is it gives volunteers a very easy way to one-click sign up. And I mean, for me, if I can't Google it, if I can't just do it really easy, people just get disengaged really quickly. So if you say, I want to volunteer, I want to get engaged, it has to be that easy. Otherwise, by the time they get a hold of you, they'll probably have called 15 nonprofits. I just want to volunteer. So that's the first thing. To build those numbers is make it easy. And the best way to do that if you don't have the infrastructure is posting on our calendar. We also offer volunteer management training series, which is great for anyone currently in volunteer management at a nonprofit. There's also a lot more companies that are having their own internal volunteer coordinator. It's a great program for them. That covers recruiting volunteers, planning the program, executing the day of, supervising the volunteers, and evaluating the project, because that's a key step a lot of volunteer managers miss and a lot of programs miss, is going back through and really evaluating the experience the volunteers had, the effectiveness of the program, because if you're spending all this time and you have to quantify it in dollars of the salaries and the time you could be spending doing other things, and this program kind of helps you look at that. That volunteer management training series is coming up in October. And upon completion, participants receive a certificate from Volunteer Florida, which is the Governor's Commission on Volunteerism and Community Service. So it's a legitimate certificate that says, hey, I know what I'm doing when it comes to volunteer management, which is great for someone in volunteer management. And a lot of recent college grads that are saying, I think I kind of want to get into this, but they don't really have the resume experience. So that's a great way to get your feet wet in the idea of managing volunteers. For people kind of a step back from that are avid volunteers, and they want to get a little more involved, but they're not quite ready for that level of commitment, whether it's a college course, a certificate course. We have our free project leader orientation. We do this every month. It's open to anyone in the community that wants to come in and learn how to lead a volunteer project. Through this, we give them everything they need to work with us to post their own projects. So if they say they want to volunteer with kittens out at the beaches and they don't see a project like that, we encourage people to develop those projects, and we'll help you every step of the way, because odds are if you want to do a type of project, someone else does too. So we're trying to work on every level. We also have a youth program, because, I mean, let's face it, youth are the future. It
Sure.
seems kind of cheesy, but it's true. And sometimes these youth volunteers are just, it's mind-blowing what they can do, because they haven't been around long enough to kind of be told, no, you can't do that, or don't try to do that. And that's a 8 or 9 month program, and it ends on Global Youth Service Day, where they do projects addressing their target areas. And we've had these kids take on human trafficking.
Oh my goodness.
Children with disabilities. Last year they did Hands On for Hope Fun Fest, where they actually raised money and threw on a whole festival for kids affected by cancer treatment. So I mean, they're very ambitious, and it's a great program to kind of get them going. And these are high school students, so these are the kids that then feed into those programs that then become those excellent CEOs of nonprofits, because they believe in it and they started so young. So that's another program that we really encourage people to apply for.
Sounds like you've got a great repertoire over there.
Yeah.
Now, let's see, do you have any tips for any nonprofit organizations on how to effectively manage their volunteers?
My biggest tip is attend that volunteer management training series. It covers everything beginning to end. But one of the ones that one specific thing is if you're recruiting volunteers when they come the day of, make sure that you place them doing what they expect to be doing. Because sometimes people will write really enthusiastic volunteer postings like, we can't wait to like go play with puppies, and really you're cleaning out the kennels. And the last thing you want is volunteers to come in expecting one thing and getting another, because then you have a dissatisfied volunteer and they will never volunteer again, and you're losing that person. And once you get someone in, it's easier to hold on to them than it is to find new people. So make sure they're satisfied when they come in that first time.
Sure, increases their level of passion, which may equate to now you have a whole fundraising unit.
Exactly.
Not only am I volunteering my time, but now I'm going out and I'm recruiting dollars.
Doing what you do best also counts on the board as well. They're volunteers, as we talked about before, but if somebody's comfortable because they're a CPA with being on the finance committee, you don't put them on the marketing committee. You put them where they want to be and where they're most effective.
Okay, and that leads me to my question to you. What tips do you have for whether it's a young nonprofit organization out in our audience or even established? What are some of the words of wisdom you might have?
Seek help. There's a lot of organizations out there that are available to help you, more than willing to listen to what your concerns are. Likely these organizations have helped other organizations that had the same problems through them, so reach out.
Okay, Jet, any words of wisdom from you?
I would say, in addition to what they said, just stay on top of all the new things that are coming out in the nonprofit sector. Make sure that you are on the listservs, that you're getting these emails, newsletters that come out from umbrella organizations throughout the country. A couple years back, a lot of nonprofits lost their 501c3 status because they didn't know the rules for the 990 had changed, that organizations under $25,000 now had to file what's called a 990N. It's a little postcard.
Okay.
It's 5 lines. It's done electronically. 250,000 nonprofit organizations lost their tax-exempt status throughout the country. Some of them were defunct. They were well out. They just didn't exist anymore. But others lost it just because they didn't know that the rules had changed. So they have to stay on top of all the new developments that are happening in the sector. So not only the financial stuff through the IRS, but also just challenges that are coming at them. That people in my field, we're academics and we study this and we can see certain challenges coming, and we write about that stuff in regular sector journals and things. So just stay on top of what's happening in the sector, because it might be a national trend that's going to impact you locally.
That is a very good point, because that's pretty scary to be doing your thing and managing your volunteers perhaps, and then all of a sudden, because you weren't aware of something, you've lost your status. And I would think it'd be a real challenge to get it back.
Well, you got to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And the wait list right now, because we just had a nonprofit that just it took them over a year from the time that they submitted that paperwork to getting it approved, and they're so backlogged processing it that once you lose it, it's not easy.
Very scary thought. So
Right.
that's an excellent point to bring out. So, and we're going to be out of time here in a minute. So Kevin, I want to go back to you and let's talk real quickly, kind of recap the conference coming up, because it's such a wonderful opportunity for folks to meet and greet.
Well, we're excited about it because it dawned on us one day that there's no conference for nonprofits in Northeast Florida. So we started one. It's kind of like, I want to work with puppies at the beach, but there is nobody. Well, let's do it anyway, right? So we did that, and we reached out to our neighbors, everybody else that's involved with that, and so it's really become a fun effort. And again, September 20th, it's really a half day, right? It's going to run from 8:30 till 1:30 in the afternoon. But there's no nonprofit or even somebody who's thinking of starting a nonprofit that shouldn't be part of this.
Okay, I want to thank you all for being here. We are out of time. Thank you in the audience for joining us. Come back next time when we'll be speaking of business. Bye now.